I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
In today's video, we're going to be talking to you about never give up on yourself. And this is so important because there are many times in your life that things do not go your way and things get really difficult. And you may struggle with anxiety and depression and any other mental illness that may be coming up. Trauma, whatever, and it could be difficult to get through it, but you can. And we see people struggle every single day. Breakups are some of the most traumatic things people go through in life.
And triggering.
Mm-hmm.
Breakups can bring up a lot of past traumas that you didn't realize you still need healing to do on.
And many of you guys are only learning about things like attachment theory and mental health and, considering how to be a good partner, all the things that we teach because of your breakup. Mm-hmm. And before this channel or before the breakup, you never considered any of it. So they really can be life-changing. And you just have to keep going. As difficult as it may be, the more you keep at it, focused on healing, improving your mental health. Some of you are going to get there slower than others, but you can get there, right?
Completely agree.
Everybody watching this video has a different experience in their life, different families, different family traumas, different relationships with caregivers, and all those experiences and struggles make us unique. Mm-hmm. So I've got an email coaching today from someone that's been watching the channel for a while, and they comment often, okay? So I'm going to just go ahead and get into this one. They said, "Hi, Craig. First of all, I want to say that it saves you some work. I am very well versed in all of this because I've been through it twice. I did the creative healing course and the workbooks." So he's been really motivated, right?
And
that's a lot of work.
It super helps to know all of that knowledge and to be able to be a little bit more self-aware the second time around.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a lot of work. I mean, the workbooks alone are like 600 pages.
It's a lot. It's a lot. You better buckle up when you get into those.
I feel like the course is probably twice as big as that.
It's extensive.
Too. It is huge. Mm-hmm. So he's worked really, really hard. But sometimes people will get there at a different pace, right? We don't know his life history, but it must have been tough. As you're going to see, it must have been tough, okay? He says, "I have a very high attachment anxiety to the point of puking." I actually had somebody throw up on the phone one time during a video call. This guy was just devastated. He just started throwing up. And it was a regular client of mine. We were talking like 3 times a week.
Wow.
But something happened. I can't remember what it was, but believe me, I understand puking.
And it's actually a lot more common than you think. Our vagus nerve runs through the middle of our body and, through our stomach. So digestive issues, when we do get anxious or really depressed or in a high intense mood state, definitely happens. Definitely
Absolutely.
happens.
Now, you actually did a call with him.
I did. I remember.
And he was dating this particular woman for about 6 months or so. Okay? He says that he doesn't have any kids, but she does have one. All right. They're both in their late 30s. And he said, I was absolutely insecure about a guy friend of hers who happened to work with me too. She only hung out with him a few times and knew his kids. She did absolutely nothing to make me worry about anything. And then he goes on to say, absolutely nothing. Okay? There's a reason we're saying it like this, and I'm sure he's saying it like this on purpose.
Yeah, and it's great that there is that level of self-awareness. You know, a lot of times when we do feel intense emotions, we convince our brains of what we want to think is true and what's not true to justify our emotions. Here he's saying, you know what, I messed up. This is what it was. If I look at her behavior, if I try to find evidence, there just isn't any. So be real with yourselves, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm sure all the work he's done has helped him realize that too. She spent lots of time with me. It was all in my head due to major cheating in my past from exes. Okay, so while I certainly think that's true, I think that this is going beyond exes. Because if you grew up in a home that you got a lot of love and attention and you were really secure, you're not going to be that traumatized by girlfriends cheating later in life. Yes, it will traumatize you, but if you're really secure, I don't think it's going to have this much impact.
Right. You have a little bit more resilience if you did grow up in a supportive household,
Yeah.
and a supportive household that taught you how to manage these really difficult emotions, or when people do betray you or hurt you, versus a household that was a hostile environment itself.
Yeah, exactly. So I think whatever happened in his early childhood had a huge impact on him feeling like he's going to puke all the time in his romantic relationships.
Yeah.
She told me she had to work late one day, and my imagination went wild. I called her around 9, and I could hear that she was typing. I was really calling to snoop. So, well, why? Didn't trust her? Wanted to make sure she was still working? Probably. And to tell her that her guy friend, his coworker, now has a girlfriend, which relieved my anxiety because it made him less of a threat. Well, that's also in his mind. Okay? The story you're telling yourself is, oh, now that this guy's got a girlfriend, he's less of a threat. I mean, there could be some truth to that, but really, if he wants to date your girlfriend and she wants to date him, it's going to happen. Right? So you've created this story in your head, and it's going to cause him to spiral.
Right. And what's interesting is what you think is making you feel better is actually making you feel worse in the long run. Because it's not about whether that other guy has a girlfriend or not.
That's right.
It's more about your level of trust with her. And so building up those things that actually do defend against, you know, feeling hurt in a relationship or being betrayed or feeling less confident and having doubts in your partner are those things that you want to focus on, rather than specific behaviors that are just band-aids. You know, the monster inside's going to creep back up if you don't work on some of those core issues.
Yeah, it's a false sense of security, and you're going to see what happens, because look at what he said. He did it to Snoop to see if she was there, and he really wanted to see what her reaction was going to be about this guy that he works with dating someone else. He said, I felt I needed to tell her just to gauge her reaction. I know this is sick and unfortunate behavior. She simply said, how do you know they're together? Probably she was just adding to the conversation. But I was drinking. Guys, alcohol is not your friend during a breakup.
Or during a relationship at some points.
That's true. But especially when you don't have the luxury of, you know, getting drunk and calling and texting your ex and blowing up their phone and just terrifying them.
Yeah. And at this point, they're still together, is what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, when you know how you react under certain type of influences and certain type of substances, take note of that, because it probably will trickle into your relationship. If you know that you do get highly emotional and angry when you're drunk or on any other substance, note that to yourself and make an effort to be mindful of that, and do those things that you need to do in order to prevent you from hurting your partner.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is not going to go well. We argued, and sad to say, when she started ignoring me, I said the stupidest thing ever. That I'll kill myself. And that, Craig, was that. Well, we have touched upon this before in previous videos, and it does come up occasionally. When you threaten to hurt yourself like that, it really scares people badly. And for valid reasons. It shows that you're unstable, and, a lot of times someone is afraid that that responsibility will be put on them. And remember, they've only been dating for 6 months. Okay, this isn't somebody you've been with for 5 years and have 2 kids together.
Right.
This is somebody that you're still in the early stages of getting to know them, and when you're seeing this happen, you're going to be like, whoa, this is not good. This is scary.
Yeah, and I will also say her being a woman, I think, adds to it as well. And this is some of what we talked about on the call too, is that his experience as a man throughout all of this is going to be very different than hers as a woman, generally speaking. There is a level of safety that she has to consider for herself that I think some men really don't have to in the same sense, because men are larger, because there's a lot of violence that's perpetrated against women from men. And so him being suicidal and saying, I'm going to kill myself if you don't, succumb to my needs and my demands, she's also thinking, well, if you're going to do that, what else are you capable of?
That's true. And Margaret has talked to us over the years, I know me privately, about murder-suicides that she's actually seen. And I know of a couple of cases that we talked about.
Right.
I knew one of the families where it happened. So that is a very real threat to women, especially.
And it's really sad that it had to come to this. He must have felt in such a desperate state that he had to resort to an extreme in order to try to get her attention, which is reflective of how starved emotionally I think he really is.
And probably what he needed to do to get attention from his parents when he was small. Right? He was that desperate to get their attention.
Yeah. And you know what? All of our behaviors and our body language, the things we say, they are all messages on how we are doing and our mental state and our psyche. And so, if I'm in his situation and I realize maybe the next day, oh crap, I said something that was really manipulative, maybe I didn't mean to say that, I'm sure that came off the wrong way, I would also be thinking to myself, what made me think that way? What made me say that? And also being able to find the help that I need for myself. It's reflective of where you were in that moment and how intense your feelings were.
Yep. Let's go on here. She is still friends with my sister on social media and started coming to my work again. I am blocked, but left a few voicemails explaining my depression wasn't personal. I've gotten help, so that's great news. We were very close. She said at this point, I can't see you again. I wish you the best. Please reach out to your sisters for help. And she called in a wellness check.
And good on her, too.
She cares about him.
I will say that. Good on her.
Yeah, that was very thoughtful.
A lot of people faced in this situation don't know what to do when a partner, threatens suicide. And I think she did the exact right thing of offering, hey, here's some other resources for you to get help. I don't want you to do this very clearly. And I'm going to call the police to make sure that this doesn't happen. I'm going to get somebody else in authority involved to make sure you are safe. But I need to distance myself emotionally from this because of the intensity.
Yeah, I think she had to do it. She had a very unusually normal upbringing with little conflict. I grew up in a dysfunctional family with a drunk dad who punched holes in the walls. I did too. I know what that's like. Who left when I was 3. My mom was very anxious Italian woman. I can relate with that too. You can too.
Same.
And was dealing with my brother who had ADHD and refused to go to school. And often ADHD is a sign of trauma in the home too.
Can be.
Yeah. In 1st grade, I was so distraught not being with mom, I would piss and crap myself every day. Okay, so there we have it. Look at that behavior from a 1st grader. You know what? He's probably 6 or 7 there, roughly in that time frame. And, you know, I worked with kids for many years. That is very unusual behavior. You only see that in extreme cases with there's a lot of serious things going on in that home. I have had kids that would do that, and it would take a while to work with them and, you know, help them. But to see it, especially every day, he must have been incredibly anxious.
Yeah. And when you're thinking about the chemicals inside of his body that are causing him to have this type of reaction.
You mean the urine?
You know what I mean? Whatever is causing him to excrete everything. You know, he's in such a primal... What are you still having?
I was thinking about the excretion.
All right. As I was saying, when you have a child who is in such a primal state of fear that their body says, you know, we cannot hold on to everything, you know, we are in danger mode, we need to survive right now, that amount of stress on a daily level does a lot of damage on the body and on the mind. You know, there's a really great study that talks about kids who have had difficult times growing up and how it affects their health and their mental health later on in life, called the Adverse Child Experiences. So if you do want to learn more about that, that's a really great place to start. And there's a lot of research on how children who grew up in very dysfunctional homes or really poverty-stricken homes can end up with a lot of damage done later on. You know, and it also, there's a hopeful side to it too. It also talks about strategies and techniques and ways to lessen and mitigate some of that damage and to build resilience. So if you're interested, it's great to learn more about that.
Yeah, but now we're seeing why he is the way this way as an adult, because he's been like this since he was in 1st grade, and even before 1st grade, it didn't just magically happen in 1st grade.
And I'm super happy that he was able to make that connection.
Yes.
A lot of people aren't able to make that connection and are confused with what's quote unquote wrong with them. They tend to internalize it and think that there's something just broken within them, rather than them being, you know, a reflection of their experiences and that trauma coming out.
I could almost hear Margaret saying, I bet at some point he thought he was gonna die.
Probably.
That I bet there's some trauma that happened in those first 3 years with the father, that it got so physically abusive that he thought he was gonna die. Can't you hear it? You know Margaret would be thinking like that.
Yeah. And when you think about it, the other thing that I'm thinking here is the substance abuse. You know, a lot of times there can be genetic components to addiction, and a lot of times you will see addictions following through intergenerationally. So we know that his father had an issue with alcohol. You know, he's now exhibiting some behaviors while drinking, and this is also something that we talked about in the call, but in a clinical therapy setting, what they will go after first in this type of situation is the substance abuse, because everything else, you know, doesn't make sense to
Gotta
go
get
after
that
first.
Yeah,
right?
gotta get that under
You have to
control.
be sober and, you know, with a clear mind to be able to work on more of these emotional issues.
Absolutely. While in relationships, my imagination has been my worst enemy. This girl was great. I guess I just want to know step by step what to do if she does reach out. She definitely loved me a lot, and besides that bump, things were really great. No contact is brutal. Well, I hate to say it, but this was a lot more than a bump. Okay? This was a very serious, scary thing that I think is going to have a huge impact on her feeling safe with you again. And if she reaches out, you are going to have to be very casual and very slow. She is going to really want to make sure that you're stable. And any signs of instability or emotional issues, I think she's going to run again.
I agree. I do think he needs to tread very carefully here and also be able to check in with himself. I think this was a good reality check of some of the areas that still deserve a lot of attention and nurturing in his own life. A lot of times we do a lot of work in therapy and we feel like, man, I am ready for a relationship. I've been waiting for one. I can't wait till, my sexy girlfriend comes along. But we don't realize that being in a relationship can be more triggering than anything else and can feel very different. So you might have all that knowledge in your brain. You might have a lot of self-reflection, but it isn't until you're able to be, in relationship with somebody, attached to somebody, and be able to remind yourself of this information, implement it, and really integrate it into your body.
And what I try and tell you guys all the time is attachment issues are going to come out when you get attached. So if you don't do the work now, it's going to come back either when your ex comes back or you meet somebody new. The issues are going to be there. And for him, he's got to focus on his own mental health, and he's got to really, I think he needs a good trauma therapist and starts to, read a lot of books on trauma and watch videos on trauma and see what there is for trauma resources out there, because, they dated for a very brief time and he had an extreme reaction to something that only was in his head. So that puts a lot of things in perspective. She didn't even do anything to cause any of this. This was all about him. And so if it's all about you, how are you going to be with somebody when real issues come up? Like when you're dating somebody new and somebody really likes your girlfriend, because that's going to happen. Or problems come up, or your girlfriend says they need some space, or whatever it may be. You have to be very stable in those times and show that you're centered, that you're not going to get thrown off, because that scares people.
Right. And the really hopeful part about this is, just as a lot of his behaviors I really do think are learned because of the level of trauma that he's experienced, a lot of the positive behaviors that we're talking about, that stability, being able to have a more balanced view of what's going on, can also be learned and can also be implemented into your body and become like second nature. And so we really want you to focus on the positive here and focus on, if you continue, yes, this is a hiccup, a big hiccup, and if you continue, you will see results. Now, we can guarantee you that the emotional work you do is so, so valuable. And thinking especially for him, who has experienced a rough childhood, think about your future generations, ahead of you. The work that you do right now is so incredibly important.
Yep. Never give up on yourself. If right now you need to continue the work just to stay motivated to try and quote unquote get her back, that's understandable. But ultimately, this was really about you and your relationship with yourself, and it really wasn't even about her. She was just like a byproduct of this, because she didn't even do anything other than exist for this to happen. So never give up on yourself, no matter how difficult things are. There are always resources out there. The internet is so vast. There's videos on trauma therapy, or different groups, support groups in local areas. And obviously we have 1,500 videos or so that you can watch that are all about mental health and attachment issues. So there's tons of things that weren't available even 10 years ago.
Right. And I think in this call in particular, I did recommend therapy and offer some different places to find a weekly local therapist. that you can talk to and work through some of these issues on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Part of a therapist's job is to also keep you accountable and to guide you alongside you while you're working through this trauma. So it can seem overwhelming. Like, I have no idea what this therapist is going to say. Is she going to force me to talk about some things that happened? Is it going to be uncomfortable? A good trained therapist will be gentle. I'll put it that way.
Especially a trauma therapist,
Right.
which is what he needs.
Right.
Okay. So lots going on in this situation, but please always work on yourself. Make that your priority. Keep it up. He's worked really hard. Stay motivated regardless of what happens with her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you want to get our help personally, you can do that only on my website, askcraig.net. I do email and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.